So you get the lay of the land here. We've got picked on as a kiddo, thrown in a pit, sold into slavery, accused of attempted rape, and then off to prison. If I was a little brother like Joseph, always picked on and unimportant, I might get kind of defensive. I might grow up kind of defensive, maybe angry, maybe sad, maybe create some little brother coping mechanisms that drives my family crazy and everyone else. If I was thrown into a pit by the very people who were supposed to love me, I might give up on people, give up on love. If I was sold into slavery, I don't know what I would do. I don't know how I would crawl out of that misery. It just seems too much to me. If I continually did a good job at work and in my moral life, and yet someone in a position of power accused me of something heinous and other people believed him, I wouldn't even know what to do. And if they sent me to prison after all that, it would be so easy to just give up. So why doesn't Joseph just give up? Or start drinking? Or get so bitter that no one wants to be around him? Much less someone wants to write about his life, about this life. I've seen plenty of dysfunction in my life, and I know many of you are still going through all kinds of things that resonate with this story. I hear your stories. I wish we haven't been dealt some of the cards we've been dealt. But Joseph's life, it's just the nasty family drama some of us can relate to. These broken parts of the world that we know about and some of us have to deal with directly all the time. Things that take advantage of you, the wrongs of life that will always be unfair, the pain and darkness that follow us everywhere we go. Joseph's story is a stand-in for the very worst parts of our own stories. He's a symbol for the despair that seeps into our life no matter what we've done to plan to fill those cracks. And yet somehow, for all the grief that he felt, Joseph kept going with hope right in the face of despair. Somehow we carry on, for better or worse, with the anguish of divorce and health problems and mental health problems and hatred in the world and fractures in relationships and ineffectiveness in all that we might want to do in our life. Somehow, even in those darkest parts of life, there is a way that finds us to get through, to keep going, to reorient, to rebuild. I don't know that way all the time. In fact, sometimes I am convinced there's not a way forward. I'm convinced. But even at our most downtrodden, I keep getting surprised at the grace of the world showing the way forward. Now, part of that, I suppose, is just the strength we have. We're just tough people. Joseph was probably a little guy with a bunch of big brothers, so that means he's pretty tough. He's been fighting all the time. Many of us are tough. So many times, we in our life rely on the spiritual gift of grit, and sometimes it works. We don't have to over-spiritualize every little thing here. Some of us are just rugged individuals, and good for us for picking ourselves up sometimes. And part of the way forward is relying on other people, because none of us are only rugged individuals, and thank goodness there are wise and caring people in the world to make our path easier, make our path possible, to counteract so much of the ignorance and harshness that we see in our neighborhoods. Part of the way forward might be called prayer, or call it meditation, or rest, or focus, whatever you want. You really don't have to believe in God to know that just sitting still does something. Science and psychotherapy are all in for that one, and it just happens in every religion, over all time, over all places, with different ideas about what God is or whether there's a God. They all agree that something like prayer works. And the Christian faith is right there with that there's peace in prayer. When you're in the most dumps, you just practice over, and when you're even in good times, you practice this prayer so that when you're in dumps, you'll be able to pray deeply when you need the most. And part of the way forward for some people, in some situations, let's just be honest, it's going to be medication. If Joseph were around today, he'd be on Zoloft for all the things going on in his life. Which isn't to say that prayer doesn't work. It's to say that God has given us pills and prayer and people and perseverance to face the kinds of times that Joseph faced. And that's not all. There's 4 P's right there, but there's more. Part of the way forward, out of such despair, you can call it God. Many of us call it God. Some of us just think of it as some rhythm in the world, this nebulous thing that we don't know how to define. You can say the world is the way it is because of God, or that's just the way the world is without the baggage of that word. However you label it, however you explain it, something about getting through the hard things in our life is about being part of this world with trust, faith, It's our experience that we've done. Hope for that to work in the future? This recurring fact that this too shall pass. This too shall pass. This thing that is holding me back, this thing that is giving me so much pain, this thing casting a shadow over the good in my life, or at the very least that feeling that in every problem, the feeling of being abused and dumped off and useless and broken and forgotten, that too shall pass. It might pass like a kidney stone. Some things really hurt to pass. When our life mirrors Joseph, there are hurts in our life and they pass. Those might be the challenge that knocks you on your feet and gives you scars for the rest of your life. And if you think that Joseph just followed the path that Mark read, and that somewhere in between those verses there wasn't times on his knees in tears, in screaming at God, in trauma and the triggers and a lifetime of work to work on all that stuff, it's too wildly optimistic. I don't believe in fairy tales. In this story, Joseph was a real person, and Joseph struggled to get there. I believe Joseph cried and begged and made wrong decisions and tried to pick himself up 10 times and fell down 9 times. But through all that, he kept going with perseverance and purpose, with faith and with hope. He kept going because he knew he was not alone. He knew that there was a comfort at hand, and that comfort had something to do. Whether he was a theologian or a believer, that comfort in his heart had something to do with the power at the source of all things. And what confidence that is when the transcendence is the personal. And if Joseph is our exemplar, whatever ideas we have about God and religion and church and Bible, we're all over the map here. But if we can look at this character at all and have anything for our life and draw some encouragement, be encouraged that there is something beautiful about this broken world. Be encouraged that there is something transcendent that touches our soul as much in wonder as in the wounds. Be encouraged that you never face pain without a blessing. And I pray that you can trust that now when your storms might be at rest. I pray that you can hear that now if the storms are pouring over you. And I pray that we can follow that now as a community and be a support for those who are having a hard time like Joseph. Amen.